Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for today's panel discussion about how NIH supports transitions from academia to product development. My name is Matt McMahon. I'm the director of the SEED office at NIH, and I'll be your moderator for the next 45 minutes or so. I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about the SEED office at NIH, why we were formed and what we're trying to accomplish. And then you'll hear a little bit from my colleagues. First, you'll hear from Asim Subadi, who's SEED's academic innovation team lead. And then you'll hear from Stephanie Fertig, who leads our small business team. A few housekeeping issues right up at the start. If you want to ask us a question, please use the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. And if you don't get your question answered, or if you think of something later, you can always stop by the exhibit hall and talk with us or one of our colleagues who are available to chat with you during the meeting and during personal appointments. And this recording is going to be posted here within 48 hours. It might be so exciting that you want to come back and watch it again. So we want to make sure that you can do that or share it with your friends. So I'll start out by just telling you a little bit about the SEED office. But before I start, I wanted to get an idea of what our audience is like, what kinds of people are listening to this presentation. So if it's possible for me to get the first poll question up, we'll see if we can get some information about that. Let's see. Well, if that doesn't work, I'll just take a guess. And I'm going to guess that most of the participants in this session are probably academic investigators who are interested in NIH funding, or maybe you're NIH funded, or perhaps you're a young investigator who's trying to understand what resources are available to you from NIH, or maybe you're a research administrator who's trying to understand a little bit about what NIH does in addition to funding those basic science research grants that you're used to receiving. So the SEED office was established just a few years ago, and it was established to help investigators who are funded by basic science research funding, those early stage investments from NIH. It was formed so that NIH could help those investigators transition those ideas into products and services that can actually help people and impact their lives. The mission of NIH is not just to understand the basic biology of the human system, but it's to apply that knowledge to improve human health and save lives. And so what our office is doing is helping investigators when they get that spark, when they get that idea that their discovery might have some potential to impact human health. We want to help them understand what they can do to be successful. And the way that we're a coordinating office. So basically, what we're doing is we're sitting in the office of the director, and we're helping investigators that are supported by all of the components of NIH, by all of the institutes and centers. So that's our broad mission. The way that we accomplish that is we have three separate divisions within our office. The first one is an academic innovation team that Asim is going to tell you about. The second one is a small business team that Stephanie Fertig is going to tell you about, and that's basically assisting small businesses to leverage NIH funding and support to do early product development. And then the third piece is we have a whole team, an innovator support team that has industry experience folks, people who've led small businesses, who have worked in industry, who've worked in the investment world and really understand what it takes to, from a business perspective, from an entrepreneurship perspective, that are necessary to layer on top of solid scientific discoveries in order to really start that process of turning science into a product or service that can help people. So let's just jump right into it, and I'll hand it over to Asim, who's going to tell you a little bit about our support for academic innovators. So take it away, Asim.
Thanks, Matt. As Matt mentioned, the mission of the office is we're really trying to help academics as well as small businesses who are taking the idea that they discovered something in their lab and they want to take that idea and build it into a product that will help patients down the line. And so in the academic front, as you all probably are very well aware, vast majority of innovation really happens in academic labs. The basic research that you all do has this, they have this potential to be turned into drugs or devices or diagnostics. And that's where we come in, and we're trying to provide all the support and resources we are able to provide. So what I'll do today is I'll talk to you about a network that we have created around the country with the goal of supporting academics who have these really innovative ideas at very early stage. And we created a program, a set of programs where we will not just provide you with funding, but provide you with all of the other wraparound support and resources you need to take that idea further so that it can eventually be converted into a product. So we call it the NIH Proof of Concept Network. And so I will share my screen because I want to sort of impress upon you the extent of the network and go over the network first. And then after I talk about the network, I can also talk very briefly about some of the other programs at NIH that does support academics who are interested in taking their idea and building it into a product like drug devices or diagnostics. So very quickly, I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully this will work. Turn it into a full screen. Okay. So as you can see here, the NIH Proof of Concept Network is pretty expansive. It covers pretty much most of the country. So it covers more than 100 institutions in 34 states and Puerto Rico. And the program consists of, or the network consists of three different programs. The first of those programs was started in 2013 at the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute. The institute wanted to create a set of centers where you take academic ideas and you provide some funding, but then also all these other support to take the idea forward. NHLBI, Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, created three centers called National Centers for Accelerated Innovation. The focus was on heart, lung, blood, and sleep focused diseases. And so it covers 28 universities in 7 states. And so this program was quite successful. Even in 2 years from when the program was launched until in 2015, there was a number of projects that were funded, and we could immediately see the impact of the program and how it really helps academics take their idea and get all these other education and training and support and take it forward. And so in 2015, we expanded the program to now create a trans-NIH focused program called REACH, or Research Evaluation and Commercialization Hubs. The REACH program, the first version of the REACH program that was started in 2015 had 3 different hubs that covered 6 universities in 3 states. And in 2019, we further expanded the REACH program to now establish 5 additional hubs, and those 5 additional hubs covered 43 universities and colleges in 10 states. And in 2018, National Institute of General Medical Sciences really wanted to focus on entrepreneurship development and supporting this product development in the idea states. So these are states that historically have not received as much NIH funding and support. There are 23 of these states and Puerto Rico. And so what NIGMS did was created these 4 regional technology transfer accelerator hubs in the 4 idea regions. So in the Northeast, in Southeast, in the central states, and the Western states. And this particular program, the 4 hubs cover 49 universities and research institutions in 23 states and Puerto Rico. And in fact, the way this program is designed, in addition to the universities and research institutions in those states, any small businesses within those states also get support from the program. So as you can see, it does cover a wide array of pretty much like most of the country. There is still areas where we do not have hubs and centers, but it does cover a big portion of the country. A little bit about how these programs really work. And so as I mentioned, the idea is to provide that really early stage feasibility funding to demonstrate the proof of concept, so that your idea does have merit to convert it into a drug or devices or diagnostics or research tools. And so what we do is NIH provides funding to these hubs and centers, and we also provide expertise and expert feedback and support. And these hubs are then tasked with the way we created the program. Most of these hubs also bring in matching components. So whatever the amount of dollar we give them, they also raise the same amount of dollar from their local ecosystem, either from their university or their state government. And so the idea is to really amplify the scope of the program and increase the value of the program. And so the focus is really providing education and training to any academics in the network. So anyone who is within the university ecosystem can leverage and take advantage of this entrepreneurship education and training that are created at these hubs. They also received expert feedback as they're thinking about their ideas and they want to now apply for funding to take it forward. So you see here, there are a number of the scientific discoveries that academics have discovered and developed that comes into the hubs, and they apply for funding. During that process, they get education and training. They also get expert feedback. A number of these will then get funded. Again, they have to go through the sort of review process, and the hubs work with their local ecosystem to create an external review board that reviews this application, provides expert feedback. Once the projects are funded, they get industry-style project management. And that's one of the real important aspects of the program. We want to make sure that these programs are not using your typical academic processes where you just continue your work. It's hypothesis driven. These programs, in fact, are product, they have product development focus in mind, and they're milestone driven. So whenever the project comes in, they will get funding in tranches. So as they demonstrate and meet certain milestones, they'll get more money, and there is a project manager will keep everything on track. So the goal here is fail fast philosophy. So we want to make sure that anything that is not going to work, we are not spending time and energy and money in those, and supporting the projects that are moving forward. And so we can eventually see promising healthcare solutions down the line. There is that re-strategize and enhance discovery. So a number of the projects that might have applied, if they do not get funding in that first time, they can always get feedback and then come back and reapply. What we incorporated into this program is the hubs use and leverage their own ecosystem, so industry partners and entrepreneurs in their ecosystem and network. But NIH also provides feedback and support throughout the process. So we provide feedback during that review process when the hubs are selecting the projects they want to fund. We look at it and we provide them feedback, and not just from NIH, but we also have partnership with FDA and CMS and USPTO, where we provide with our partnership with them, like our partners from there will also provide feedback on these projects. And so that way the project is really strong, and they are already considering the regulatory and reimbursement and patent sort of implications at that early stage. And then as the projects are moving along, we also have a mechanism where these projects can come and get support from our innovator support team and from our partners as well. So it's a really innovative program. I don't have the slide here, but as I mentioned, the program has been going on. The first iteration of the program with the NIH Center for Accelerated Innovation has been going on since 2013. And what we did from the get-go was incorporate some common elements. So we want to make sure that we are capturing common metrics and we're capturing outcomes of this program. And so the kind of outcomes we look at are the number of innovators we have trained and that received entrepreneurship education and training. We look at the number of projects we supported and how many of these projects end up leading to a startup formation, how many of them apply for SBIRSTTR and receive funding, how many of them go on to receive private sector funding. And we're getting to a point now where the projects we funded early on are getting to the patients. We're tracking patient impact as well. We're looking at the FDA approvals and how many of them are in the market and how many are commercialized. So And it has been really impressive. So over the course of over these years, with all these 3 programs, we have funded about 400 projects. And these 400 projects have led to about 100 startups, which have gone on to raise more than $1 billion in private sector funding and capital. And a number of them are now either available commercially as research tools, or some of them are in clinical trials. Some of them are already in use, and our patients are benefiting from them. So it's a really exciting model of supporting early stage ideas from academics and supporting them with not just money, but all these other support to take the idea forward. If you want to learn more about it, we have a proof of concept network annual meeting coming up. It's scheduled for December 7, 8, and 9. If you go to our seed booth, you can go there and there's a link you can register. I'll also put the link after I'm done talking here on the chat as well. It's open to public, so you'll be able to come and hear about the program, how it works, the successes of the program. We have an innovator showcase. We have a joint session with Association for University Technology Transfer Managers, Autumn. So it would be a really great way for you to learn about the network and all the exciting aspects of the network. So with that, I will stop sharing, but I wanted to quickly mention that it's not just the NIH Proof of Concept Network that is supporting these early stage product development ideas from academics. There are a number of programs across various institutes and centers at NIH that will support academics who have idea that they want to build into product and either drugs or devices or diagnostics. So I would encourage you, if depending on your area or disease of interest, I would encourage you to look at the particular institution. For example, National Cancer Institute has a program called NEXT, NCI Experimental Therapeutic Program, where they will do IND-enabling studies or PK/PD studies, and all of these studies even for academics. Similarly, NIAID has a number of programs. National Center for Acceleration of Translational Studies has a number of programs. So there are a number of these other programs that some of them will provide you with grant funding or contract funding, but a number of them will provide you with resources where you won't get money, but they will do the work for you. So definitely look at the institution that most aligns with your disease area, and look for those programs as well. And so I'll stop there and pass it back to Matt, and happy to answer any questions when you get to that point.
Great, thanks, Asim. Really appreciate you describing the academic innovation support and the proof of concept network. One of the most important things that we do at SEED is we strengthen the transition between academic product development and small business product development. And the reason that's so important, as I answered in one of the questions, is that many of these academic projects continue their development in early stage product development through small businesses. And that's either through startup companies or spin out companies, or through licenses to small businesses. So I'm going to hand it over to Stephanie to tell you a little bit about our small business support and what she does at the small business team.
Thanks, Matt. Hello, everyone. So I do not have slides. Because today we're going to spend hopefully a good amount of time answering some questions. So I see there's a good number of participants on today, and I see a number of questions. So really, if you have questions, please use the Q&A, and hopefully we'll try to touch on as many of those as possible. I do want to provide a quick intro to the small business programs at NIH. So that's the Small Business Innovation Research, or SBIR, and Small Business Technology Transfer, or STTR. Now, we affectionately call them the America's Seed Fund. And really what this does is provide support to early small businesses within the United States. As you've learned in this conference, the NIH mission is really turning discoveries into health. And the small business program helps get innovations into the hands of patients, clinicians, caregivers, and researchers that need them. Now, the NIH Small Business Program is one of the largest sources of early stage capital for life sciences in the United States. We have $1.2 billion a year set aside for small businesses. And for those who are familiar with small business language, This is non-dilutive funding. So what does that mean? That means we don't take ownership of the company. It's not a loan. You don't have to pay that back. Many companies are very early in their whole drug development or device development stage, and they can then use this money to de-risk their technology, leverage that funding, and attract partners and investors that are needed to take that great innovation and take it to market. Now, we have a wealth of information on our website. And again, I want to leave plenty of time for questions. And this program is one of those where, I could do a whole hour and a half on this program. In fact, we did 3 days of conference on this program, and I'm going to put a link to that conference in the chat because all of the recordings and the slides are available. And that conference, that SBIR and STTR conference, was specifically targeted for those applicants who are brand new to the program. A couple of quick points that I think are really important before we turn it over for more questions. So one, this is a phased program, but one big misconception that I get is around the phases and whether or not it's related to clinical trials phases. They're not. It's an unfortunate similarity in the nomenclature. A lot of people get concerned about what can go through the program, if they're too early or too late. But the great thing about the small business program is it's really flexible. So it allows for companies and innovations at different stages to get the support that they need. We get a lot of questions around the budget guidelines as well. And again, they're more flexible than a lot of people think. And we have the ability to fund larger projects for some topics. Now, this is very institute and center dependent. And so the big takeaway, if you take away nothing else from this conversation today, is to please reach out and talk to your program officers, talk to us, ask us questions. We can really help guide you to what makes the most sense for you and for your company and for your technology, and be able to connect you with the appropriate person so you can determine, next best steps. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Matt, as I promised I would keep it brief, but I am going to put that link for that conference in the chat. It's got a ton of information, much more detailed than we're going to get into here today, but that's okay. We're hopefully going to hit many of the different questions. I'm seeing a bunch of questions come up, so hopefully, Matt, you've got all those ready to go.
Well, I've been furiously typing since we started here, and Asim and Stephanie can jump in here and start helping out. I'm going to go back to the chat now and see what we've got. I see, oh, good. I see we've sparked some lively discussion with Stephen Goldner. This is related to a question that he asked back in the chat that says, how many NIH projects have become FDA approved drugs or medical devices? And that's a great question. There's another resource that we developed to really help people understand that, and I'll let Asim or Stephanie type that as an answer to this latest question. We wanted people to really understand how the small business program is helping to impact, helping to develop products and services that impact people's lives. So we've started a website with success stories coming out of the NIH Small Business Program. And we have over 75 stories listed on that site now, and they're searchable in a nice interface that allows you to select stories by state or by type of product or by funding institute. And recently, we even expanded that list of success stories because we were seeing successes come out of the academic proof of concept network as well. And we said, wait a second, why are we only publishing success stories from the small business program? So now we have about 10 stories included on the site from the academic proof of concept network as well. And when you read those stories, we're really hoping to give you an impression of how the money and the support that we provide is really helping innovators transition across that gap. Stephen says that some would say that the paper that I cited demonstrates that academic research supported via NIH never really becomes products. I don't think that would be a generally accepted point of view, Stephen, because I think that we have pointed out from our success stories direct links between NIH support and products and services that are available to patients. And even though that paper takes it maybe arguably a step too far by basically identifying contributions of NIH funding to early stage drug targets and even very early research on animal models. With that, I'd probably agree with you. But I think that most of the institutes and centers have very robust translational research programs that have led to many products and services that have impacted human health and really contributed to a robust R&D pipeline.
And I would like to jump in and just emphasize, and there are a number of questions about FDA, getting FDA approval, and I think that's important. But one of the great things about the small business programs is it supports a wide variety of technologies in multiple different modalities. So things like, developing new drugs, new biologics, new devices, but also diagnostics, research tools. There's software solutions. There's even the one I always like to point out is, there is a bicycle helmet for prevention of traumatic brain injury. All of these things were supported, and you can see on those success stories. So it's important to note it's not just as we go in and we can talk a lot, we can discuss FDA and how we help support companies go through the FDA process. It's important to note that we support more than that as well. So there's a lot of opportunity here. Now, I do see a question that talks about how do you define small business? Well, that definition is actually very specific. I'm going to put a link to the definition of a small business and who is eligible for the SBIR and STTR program. Now, I didn't go into the difference between the small business, the SBIR program and the STTR program. And in short, it's really that the SBIR allows for partnering with academic or nonprofit research institutions, and the STTR requires it. But in both cases, the award always goes to the small business. So it's important to note that the small business gets the SBIR and STTR award. And again, they have to be eligible. So I'm going to put those eligibility guidelines. I'm not going to go through them all because there's a number of them, but it's a good link. There's also a link within that kind of goes in more detail. If you have any questions, though, you can reach out and talk with us, and we're happy to talk with you and make sure that you're clear on what's needed.
Stephanie, I'm going to jump in. Thank you for that. I'm going to jump in and answer a question. Does SEED help people go through the FDA process? So that is a great question. And one of the most valuable things that our team provides within that innovator support team is we have in fact, the lead of that team, Chris Sasiella, is a RAC certified FDA specialist. And we have a whole team of FDA folks that help us provide advice to innovators. But not only that, we have direct connections to the FDA that oftentimes help us to assist projects. So just to give one very specific example, we've supported many projects. NIH has supported $500 million worth of COVID diagnostic projects through the RADx program, the Rapid Acceleration of Diagnostics program. And part of the reason why the projects that we supported have been developed so rapidly and made it into the US marketplace so quickly is because we developed a relationship with the FDA that on a weekly basis, we were discussing the projects that we were funding with the FDA. And that was really a two-way street. It allowed the FDA to understand the new technology that was going to be coming and appearing on their desk, giving them an early view so they could be ready to rapidly evaluate those technologies. And it gave our innovators a real benefit because they were able to get early feedback and guidance directly from the FDA on their projects. And that principle is also baked into the academic proof of concept network. So every single project that is submitted for funding through the academic product development network gets feedback from FDA, from the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and intellectual property guidance from USPTO. So that's a critical part of what our office does. So that's a great question.
I can try to answer the next question. I think Susan Bonner is asking if our university is not a research university or part of the proof of concept network, how do we access the proof of concept group to get support for things like clinical trials for user testing and mental health tools in pre-K? So if your university is not part of the proof of concept network, unfortunately, you are not able to access the funding part of it. A number of the proof of concept centers and hubs have educational programs and tools that anyone can access. It's on their website. Regarding support for clinical trials for mental health testing tools in pre-K, I would encourage you to look at National Institute of Mental Health and the kind of funding opportunities they have. You don't have to be a research university to apply for funding through any of our NIH institutes, even if you are not like a predominantly research university. And if there is a funding opportunity that very much aligns with what you're trying to do, you are eligible to apply. So I would encourage you to take a look at National Institutes on Mental Health. They definitely have interest in leveraging these kind of tools in different settings. So that I would encourage you to look at that. And I can put the link for the NIMH website.
And I do see, I'm going to jump in and answer one question that I did see come up, asking about how flexible the SBIR and STTR programs are. And specifically, David was asking in the question that the phase 2 application asks a lot of questions about marketing and manufacturing plans, but what if the company is still earlier stage? Well, that's okay. And in fact, many of the companies that we support through the SBIR STTR program are in their early stage. And this may be your first company. And that's one of the great things about NIH is we're really trying to build support for those companies. So you can get, say, a phase 1 SBIR or STTR. And then we have different educational programs. We have the entrepreneurs in residence that Matt talked about. We have different innovator support programs to help companies better be able to flesh out, not just building on the support for the research and development, but also helping you get much better handle on the commercialization and the commercial side of the house as well, so that you can have a much better idea of what needs to be in that commercialization plan, which is a part of the phase 2. Now, that said, there's also an appreciation that some of that information in the commercialization plan, may not be, you may not have complete manufacturing plans at the point of, submitting your phase 2 application, and that's okay. But I do think, we can help, again, support you to be thinking about those different components and be able to write a good commercialization plan. And then really what's most important, transition that technology into the hands of the people that need it.
Another interesting question someone asked, typical transition from academic lab to a product. So is it, typically grad students or postdocs? Is it spinning the company out? Is it mostly through licensing or pre-existing companies? So it varies, based on our experience with the proof of concept network. I mentioned there were about 400 projects and 100 startups. What I did not mention was there were like about 30 to 40 different, in fact, more than that were licensed out to already existing companies as well. So it's a combination of both. There have been, graduate students or postdocs or faculty where they spin out a company. And then there are a number of cases where they license the technology out to either a small business or large pharma. And so a lot of it depends on, one, the academic himself or herself. Like, if they are interested in spinning out a company, they do it. But oftentimes they are like, oh, we don't want to do it ourselves. We just want the technology to be out there and like, a drug or device to be developed. And so they prefer licensing. And it also depends on the technology transfer office within the university. Some of them are very pro startup, where they really encourage and support creation of startup, while others, they are more focused on licensing it out. And it's also, I think, like evolving and changing culture. I think that startup creation model is increasing now. Like a lot of universities are emphasizing and providing this entrepreneurship training and education and doing all of that. So varies based on location, university, and the innovator themselves.
I wanted to jump in there, Asim. I think that's a great question. And I think the landscape is changing a little bit there. And one of the things that I want to make people aware of is that I know that in the academic, we all know that in the academic world, promotion and tenure and the factors that contribute to promotion and tenure really affect the activities that investigators work on, especially early stage investigators. And I'm going to put in the chat here a link to a recent coalition that is really looking to increase the value of innovation and entrepreneurship and tenure and promotion considerations. And they've made a great deal of progress. They have a nationwide coalition, people from many different institutions. They just published an article in Science about their efforts. And I think that if you're a university administrator, you should check out this website and check out their materials and really think about their main goal is to understand how to increase the diversity of activities that are valued in tenure and promotion, not just academic research publications. So if you're an investigator, I think there's hope that your institutions will value that work. And if you're an administrator, I hope that you'll take a look at that and maybe consider how your institution can help contribute to a more holistic view of the value of academic institutions and the value they provide. Oh boy. Stephen, I'll let you guys continue while I read Stephen's question.
I do think it's important to know we did get a question in the chat, and it's important to remember that while there's NIH policy and guidance, institutes and centers may have their own policies and ways that they interact with the SBIR and STTR programs. So it's important to remember that your individual institute or university may have, institution or university may have your own policies and rules around how your investigators work with companies as part of SBIR and STTR. And so you should familiarize yourself with those. And that's kind of separate and outside of NIH. That's your specific employment policies or rules within your individual institution or center or institution or university.
So I just read Stephen's question and comment. And actually, Stephen, I totally agree with what you're saying. In fact, that is the whole reason why the SEED office was formed. And back in the time of the regulatory assistance program that you're referring to, which I'm very much aware of, right around that time, NIH started to hire entrepreneurs in residence, and they were contracted employees that were very experienced entrepreneurs that came in to help those companies, to help those innovators, and really teach them what they needed to know, how to speak the language, how to have the process literacy for what it takes to actually do product development. Because as you point out, academic researchers are speaking a totally different language. They're living in a totally different environment. Those entrepreneurs in residence started having a fair amount of success teaching academic innovators about entrepreneurship and business development and the things they would need to know. And partly on the basis of those early successes, we've hired many more entrepreneurs in residence. So we have a whole legion of them across NIH now. There's probably close to 10 entrepreneurs in residence now that are working across NIH. But in addition to that, we're really supporting more entrepreneurship training programs like the I-Core program, the or the NSF Innovation Core program, and helping academics to really understand all the steps of product development so that we can really help companies and even academic investigators understand what they need to be more successful. So I think we're moving in that direction. We're not trying to turn academic researchers into industry researchers, but I think what we're trying to do is make them understand what they need to know to effectively de-risk those projects and to help them make the connections and be able to communicate with the private investment community and the strategic partners in a way that allows them to transition those products into the hands of people that can really take them across the finish line. So I really appreciate your comments. I mean, we're on the same page. We're trying to do the same thing, and we're trying to make those projects increase the chances that they make it to patients.
And I'm going to jump in and add one additional thing to note is that the SBIR and STTR program, again, individual institutes and centers at the NIH utilize the program and have a number of specific programs that work in that later stage space to help provide funding and support to small businesses to bring different technologies through the FDA process and get them into first in human and then later stage clinical studies. And I'm going to utilize one example from my old institute, which is NINDS. They have, and in neuroscience, there's the Blueprint Neurotherapeutics Network, and they have support for drugs, biologics, and devices, again, specifically targeted towards bringing those technologies to get them to the point where they can get into people, and then hopefully transitioning beyond. So I think there has been a real awareness, a lot has changed in 10 years, and there has been a real awareness and understanding that that kind of support is needed. And I know across NIH, there's a number of different ways that academics and small businesses can get that support to hopefully bring their technologies forward.
Great. Well, we're getting toward the end of our time. Maybe just a few words to wrap it up. Thank you so much for all your questions, all your comments. We're happy to answer any questions. You can reach us anytime through our website or by emailing us, and we'll make sure that information is available to everyone. We're also always trying to do better. We're trying to improve the chances that these projects make their way all the way to patients, and we are open to new ideas, to suggestions. We want to know what people's pain points are and how we can help. So please don't hesitate to contact us. We would love to hear from you. And we hope that all of those investigators that want to have an impact on human health can take an advantage of NIH's resources to help them do that in a successful way. So thank you very much. And we hope that you enjoy the rest of the conference.